you for allowing me to be here. I would like to welcome you all to our virtual literacy event. Good morning, everyone.
I'm Michelle Hardy, the Giving Guru.
Greetings to all the students.
Thank you for having me. I am so delighted to be with you all today to share our love of fitness.
Hi, Dr. Houston. Thank you so much.
Hi, Tori.
Hi, Dr. Houston.
So different. But I stayed brave and I showed kindness to all even when they weren't kind to me.
And they always come equipped with a smile and grace for when you enter the place.
He hugged Hannah. He expected to cry. 2 tears burst from his eyes, and in
Ask your parents for choices. Or parents provide choices for them.
Means so much to me and my daughter Bria, and probably also for other parents like children of like Hannah.
Tammy, wasn't this a great event?
it was incredible.
Enjoy Sheka and Tammy on the Collaborative. Let's go! 1, 2, 1, 2. What's that time?
On Facebook, Tuesday at 7.
The Collaborative.
We have our leaders, we have our teachers and our parents, we have our authors. Story time at the end, solving problems in our education system. Phenomenal women.
Join them on Facebook.
On Facebook, Tuesday at 7. The Collaborative.
It's that time. You're with Sheka and Tammy.
The Collaborative.
Phenomenal ladies. It's educational. Here on the Facebook. The Collaborative.
The Collaborative.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special edition of the Collaborative. We're so thankful to have you guys join us today as we are on our hiatus. Hey, Sheka.
Hey, Tammy. Hi, everyone.
How was your day?
Good. How was yours?
Busy, but it was great.
Yes. And thank you to everyone that's joining us. I see we have Principal Hurt with us from Detroit, Michigan. My Aunt Virginia is with us. Thank you for being here. Miss Allen, Josh Tovar from Texas, and I believe they started school back already, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, thank you all for being here.
Yes.
So, how was your day, Tammy?
It was busy, but it was great. It was a good day. It's busy. This is the busy time of year.
It is.
Yeah.
And if you all would, the collaborative is all about making sure that we're spreading the message of education and collaborating with parents and educators, everyone coming together. If you all would share this on your pages, invite other people to join in. We have had a couple of summer reading and summer learning episodes that have been very popular with educators as well as parents, because a lot of people really want to know how to make the best of this time while students are out of school, some of them. So we appreciate you all tuning in, and we are so excited to have a national expert with us today. We are very humbled and excited that Dr. Dickey is joining us today. So right before we bring him on, of course, our show is educational. So we always do on this day in history. And on July 27th, 1963, Garrett Morgan, who patented a breathing device in the form of a canvas hood, which was the precursor to the modern gas mask, in 1914. And he also invented the first automatic three-way traffic signal system, which most people probably know him for. He died on today in 1963 and was from my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, which some people can't tell by hearing me talk, but it's okay. So, Tammy, I'm going to bring on Dr. Dickey. And
yes, so glad to have Dr. Dickey with us. Hi, Dr. Dickey, and welcome.
Hey there, Tammy.
Please allow me to introduce you to our audience. I'm sure everyone is super excited to hear from you. And we are elated, and as Sheka said, very humbled to have Dr. Donyall Dickey, who is a nationally recognized authority on curriculum, instruction, and organizational development. He has a special emphasis on district improvement, and so we're super excited to hear all of the great things he has to share with us today. Unparalleled levels of student achievement and school improvement distinguish Dr. Dickey's 20-plus year career as an educational leader. He is a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, Loyola University in Maryland, and George Washington University in DC, where he earned a doctorate in educational leadership and policy. Dr. Dickey has led just about every level in public education, and after a decade of successful site-based leadership, Dr. Dickey served as assistant superintendent and chief academic officer of the nation's 8th largest school district, and later as chief schools officer and chief academic officer of a prominent school district in the Southeast. In each case, his leadership resulted in record gains in student outcomes and state assessment scores, as well as significant improvements in organizational effectiveness. Currently, as the Chief Executive Officer and lead consultant for Educational Epiphany, Dr. Dickey and his national consulting team is in partnership with urban, suburban, and rural school districts in more than 40 states across the nation. Dr. Dickey and his team are a leading provider of standards-informed instructional materials for early and continuing literacy, the core content areas, as well as targeted professional development for teachers, school leaders, central office personnel, superintendents, state departments of education, and professional associations. It's such a pleasure to share with you guys. Dr. Dickey, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Tammy Taylor. Thank you, Dr. Sheka for the invitation. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else than with y'all today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I first heard you at one of our SCASA conferences here in South Carolina at Myrtle Beach, and your knowledge of literacy was just really, it was great. It was something that was helpful. It was realistic. And definitely your story was just so relevant and easy to connect to. So we really appreciate you. And everyone that joins us on the collaborative, we always ask, what are you reading?
Well, look, I have to admit, and you guys are going to, be upset with me because I'm the first person that's going to probably say this. I had to put down all of my reading in the past 2 or 3 months because I'm writing like 4 books at a time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm currently writing a book that's published by my friends and partners at Scholastic, and it's called The Universal Language of Literacy. And and in that book, Tammy and Sheka, I'm introducing teachers and parents, school leaders to a finite number of literacy concepts for which we all must have common understanding if our children are to be successful academically. So So no matter what state you live in, main idea is main idea. What is it? What isn't it?
Exactly.
What kind of inconsistencies do we have when we are asking kids to determine the main idea of a text? What kind of inconsistencies do we have as adults rolling around and not thinking that we transfer to kids?
Love that universal language because we can all speak it.
Oh, absolutely. And when we do, we catapult children to proficiency, even kids who have not performed at the expectation in the past.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we definitely will let you off the hook for reading because you are writing, which is both things are connected. I know that's going to be a very helpful book for educators and parents. And you've already
to it.
Yes, written. I think I read 33 books.
Yes, ma'am. It's up to 39 now.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm also writing a new one. I'm co-authoring it with a superintendent in South Carolina, Dr. Matthew Lutz. And this book is called Mitigating Curricular Chaos.
Oh, that sounds interesting as well.
We love the title.
And in that book, Dr. Sheka and Tammy, Principal Tammy, I talk about what it means to clear up our approach to teaching ELA and mathematics and science and social studies, and what do all those core content areas have in common that we bring with us to the planning table and to the instructional delivery and assessment table. And when we clear up those discrepancies, we reduce the amount of chaos that children feel academically in our classrooms.
Yes, sir.
All of that sounds awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you.
One of the things that we try to help parents and educators to address are some things that they have challenges with, and sometimes that's engagement. So with all of our guests, we do a little would you rather game just so everyone can get to know you. This is Would You Rather reading edition.
Okay.
So would you rather be a nonfiction book or a fiction book?
I'd rather be a nonfiction book.
Nonfiction for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything against plays, poems, and stories, but I'm not a nonfiction kind of guy.
Me too. What about you, Tammy?
Probably, I like the informational nonfiction.
Okay. Tammy normally doesn't play the game, right?
I don't play well.
You put her on the spot too. I'm glad to know she's on my team though.
I am on your side, sir.
Would you rather be a chapter book or a picture book?
I guess it depends on what day you catch me, right?
Okay.
Because some days I don't want to talk, right? That's all I do. So some days I want to be a picture book. Some days I want to be a chapter book.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm partial to picture books just because we work with independent authors a lot, and my children are young in elementary school.
Yeah, picture books, kids can learn a lot about
and
literacy.
She loves pictures, Dr. Dickey. That's why she should be a picture.
And pictures of herself too, right?
She loves it.
Let's see why you gonna call me out.
I would rather be a chapter book.
And the last one, would you rather be a timeline or a caption?
I think I'd rather be a caption because captions give the reader additional information about pictures. And so that's like the icing on the cake. I want to be the icing.
Exactly. I would pick caption too.
Absolutely. Thank you. I like that game.
Thank you. So we're going to jump right in. A lot of people are going to tune in and a lot of people catch the replay. But literacy, has been something that has been a problem in schools for years. 2/3 of fourth graders read below grade level. Literacy rates impact so many different things like health, mental health, employment rates, poverty, and crime. And this was even before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we've seen lots of problems with literacy, and they're very widespread, but it seems to always be like a lot of the same problems with not really that much improvement. And, this was, of course, people that you're not working with. But why do you think that is the case? Like, what is the problem with literacy and why can't we get it right?
Yeah, I wanted to add something to that data that you lifted, Dr. Houston. Not only are 2/3 of the nation's third graders not reading at the grade level expectation, 2/3 of the nation's eighth graders are not reading at the grade level expectation. And 2/3 of the nation's 12th graders are not reading at the third grade, are not reading the grade level expectation. And the issue is persistent, and you're right. It has been, a light has been shed on it by the pandemic, but it was an issue before the pandemic. Okay. And so I would say that if we're going to resolve literacy rates in this country, and one of the richest countries in the world, might I add,
yes,
we're going to have to get together on what it means to teach children to read. And we have not, as a nation, we have not calibrated on the elements of literacy development, whether it be early literacy K2 or what I call continuing literacy 312. Because if kids are not reading by the end of grade 2, beginning of grade 3, we have a continuing literacy imperative. We can't just push the sixth graders into seventh and they are reading at the grade level expectation. We've got to triage them. And so I think what I'm doing across the country now, and Dr. Tammy Taylor mentioned it, is I'm talking to as many school districts as I can and professional associations about what it takes to get kids to the reading proficiency finish line. And it's simple, it's finite. Two things. Number one, decoding. Decoding is not reading. Decoding is step one in reading. And so what does decoding mean? Decoding means, I see Principal Kafele just came in. Hey, Kafele.
Yes, Principal Kafele.
That's my role model. Okay. And so,
ours too.
All of us.
Absolutely. And so if we want children to read at the grade level expectation, we've got to resolve their decoding issues. And decoding is simply stated, it is the relationship between the smallest unit of writing and the smallest unit of sound. And so when children or readers see words on the page, do they know what sounds to produce? If your brain as a reader is struggling with what sounds to produce, you're going to be missing out on comprehension because your brain is struggling with the fundamental when the fundamental should have already been resolved. Okay. And so we've got to teach everyone in our students' instructional ecosystem how to teach children how to decode. So there are 44 sounds that make up the English language, and those 44 sounds can be written 144 different ways. But let me tell you what's happening in the lower grades, like kinder, first, and second. Kids are learning K, K. Well, guess what? K is not the only way you write K. You can write it with a K. You can write it with a CK as in duck. You can write it with a CH as in school. You can write it with a CC as in occur. You can write it with a QUE as in antique. Are you with me?
Yes.
So, I could go on, but there are 6 ways to represent that sound. And when children don't understand that, when they see CK on the page, they might say instead of k. And so decoding is very important. Now, the second half of what it takes, and you tell me if my answers to your questions are too long. Okay, I will give you some. Okay, all right. Okay. And so the other part of reading at the grade level expectation is that kids have to be able to create meaning. At the same time they are decoding, which is pronouncing words, they have to also be understanding the words that they have decoded or pronounced. So if I say the word metamorphosis, so if I see it written and I pronounce it or decode it, metamorphosis, blended metamorphosis, my brain also has to say at the same time, meta means change and morph means shape. And SIS and metamorphosis means process. So when I'm done decoding, I have to be done also creating meaning, which means metamorphosis means the process of change and shape. America, that's reading. It is decoding and creating meaning on a parallel simultaneous pathway. When we get that right, we resolve this pandemic of a reading issue across the country.
I love that answer. And as I work at the secondary level, Tammy's actually at the elementary and has lots of experience in early literacy.
Yeah.
I'm glad you talked about how we're not on the same page, because we're not. There's so many different schools of thoughts and philosophies about, whether or not you believe in putting a lot of money into early literacy. Tammy's philosophy is that, and she's done it at her school and increased her report card grade three levels in 1 year.
Yeah.
But everyone doesn't buy into that. And at the secondary level, the problem that I have is we're all teachers of literacy. We have to be, because a lot of times we get the students from the elementary level and they're not on grade level. But how do, at the secondary level, when we get these students, how do we get teachers to buy into, we are all teachers of literacy, even though a lot of them feel like, well, this is the age where students should be reading to learn. I shouldn't have to be teaching them to read. But I mean, we have to meet students where they are. How do we get teachers to buy into that? Mm-hmm. And how do we train them? Because many of them weren't trained to do that at the secondary level.
Sure. So look, teachers are overwhelmed with this school of thought versus that school of thought, this program, that program, start this, stop that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So first of all, let us just acknowledge that we have put teachers on yo-yos. Okay. Let's acknowledge that. And they deserve better. Okay. Mm-hmm. And, Sean Hurt says that he's on the call with us today. And he's saying that every teacher in the country needs to hear this. That's my hope. Or I'm like Moses crying out in the wilderness. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So let me answer your question, though, Doctor. So how do we train teachers? First of all, I'm in Texas today training a group of teachers in Northwest Independent School District. Mm-hmm. And they said to me after I introduced them to the 44 phonemes and the 144 graphemes or ways to write those sounds, sir, I did not know that I did not know this myself. So in order for us to, get teachers to change or amend their practices, they've got to first be aware of this science of reading. Mm-hmm. Because once you understand the science of reading, the art that you bring to teaching reading is your individualistic approach to serving kids. So there's the science, which is the nuts and bolts, and then there's the art, how you do it in service to kids. And I would say that once people understand better, they do better in service to kids. So let me say this to give you a more nail on the head response to your question. Mm-hmm. Many people will say this: my students read below grade level. So we know that. And the more impoverished you are, the greater likelihood that you're going to read down here. Mm-hmm. 95% of all students with disabilities read below the grade level expectation. Y'all, that's criminal.
Yes.
Okay. And so what do? In real time, folks who understand the science of reading, which means phonemes, graphemes, creating meaning, sight words, word parts, and the role that they all play in service to getting children to the reading proficiency finish line, they're going to recognize that kids read below the grade level expectation, but they're not going to bring the text down for kids. They're going to bring children up to the text. Mm-hmm. So what do I mean by that? So if kids are reading, if the text is up here, grade level text is up here at their instructional reading level, but kids are reading down here at their own personal independent reading level, the mistake that many of us make in public education is we bring the text down to their independent reading level when we should bring kids up to the instructional reading level of the text. And how do you do that? You do that through point of use annotation of the text, which means what? Don't let kids read the text and we know they can't pronounce the words or decode the words, and they don't know what the words mean in the text. Because when kids are locked out of grade level text, they're locked out of background knowledge. Mm-hmm. They're locked out of content area knowledge, and they're locked out of higher order thinking opportunities. And so what do? Let's say we're going to be reading, I don't know, the Gettysburg Address in a 6th grade classroom, and the vast majority of the kids in that classroom are reading below the grade level expectation. What do? Have kids scan the text and circle words they don't know how to pronounce or decode, and they don't know what they mean, and then deal with it. And when you deal with that, then the kids can have access to the grade level text and the grade level thinking and the background knowledge.
Right.
I love that, Dr. Dickey, and I love how practical you make the work that you're doing with the teachers and administrators and superintendents across the country, relevant to what it is they're doing. And I know that this is probably something that you'll speak to later, but it's just one of those things that it helps to have someone who is a practitioner and can speak to what needs to happen, because sometimes principals and district leadership, they get so concerned about the gaps that we see and how far the kids are behind where they need to be, and that instructional gap creates anxiousness in them. So they look for a program that can solve the problem, when what they really need to do is kind of invest in the principles that you're talking about right now, because pre-teaching text isn't something that everybody believes in, but it's a necessary component for students who don't understand or have that background knowledge, so that you can go on and level the playing field. And once that level set has happened, that leverage for being able to get them to understand is there.
Yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit about maybe, and you don't have to do it now, but before you end tonight, just kind of talk about some of the resources that you have, because it doesn't always have to be a program, because programs are designed sometimes to be followed as the program, but sometimes what they need is just the practicality of what you're trying to say to us that needs to happen in each class.
Well, let me say this. Public education, Tammy, Sheka, and to the listening audience, public education is over-programmatized. We don't need another program.
I agree.
Because here's what we're doing, y'all. We're buying piles of stuff. When in fact, if we spent time building human capital, like building capacity of every tier of your educational instructional ecosystem. So build the capacity of the paraprofessionals, who sometimes are stronger than the teacher of record.
Yes.
Okay.
Full of them.
That's right. And that's not a swipe at teachers. That's a credit to paras.
It is.
Okay. Okay. So build the capacity of your paraprofessionals. Strengthen their capacity, address their critical weaknesses, build the capacity of the classroom teacher, address their critical weaknesses, build the capacity of the teacher leader, because some of our teacher leaders, I don't know how they became teacher leaders. Are you with me? Because they're learning alongside of the people they're supposed to be coaching. There's nothing wrong with being open to learning, but if you are a teacher leader, you should be studying to show yourself approved, a workman worthy of his or her hire. Y'all know where I come from. Okay. All right. So
amen.
Okay. So you got to build the capacity of paraprofessionals, teachers, teacher leaders, assistant principals, central office people to whom principals report, so that the everybody is marching to the beat of the same drum. And what you need more than a program is capacity. So when people pick up the program, they can see the holes in the program, because there's no program that you can buy in this world, including the one that I've written and published by Scholastic, that doesn't have holes in it. And so how do you fill the holes in any program of study? You do with the capacity of the people who are handling the program. Okay. And so I would say this, the resources that I have built and I'm sharing with that's impacting, the schooling experiences of millions of children nationwide, they're practical resources. So let me tell you, here's what I've done. I've taken the state standards for ELA once and for all, and I've unpacked them, because I'm tired of unpacking the same standards for the past 10 years. Right. And so if kids are going to be determining the main idea of a text, what does that mean? Main idea is what the text is mostly about. And in order to understand main idea, you've got to understand that key details are synthesized in order to determine the main idea. And key details are important words and phrases that are used intentionally by the author to fulfill the purpose for having written the text to communicate the main idea to the reader. And the key details are too narrow to be the main idea. And the topic is too broad to be the main idea because it's the subject. So I've taken every state standard for ELA and mathematics and science. And social studies is harder to do because social studies standards change a great degree from state to state, but I've unpacked every standard. I've interpreted every standard. I've identified every academic term that should be taught from grade to grade to grade. Like main idea is main idea in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And then main idea becomes central idea in 6th grade through 12th grade. And central idea is synonymous with main idea. And I've defined like terms like inference. It's not an educated guess. It's a logical inference. So I've unpacked the standards, operationally define every term that lives inside of the standards. So when children go from 3rd grade to 12th grade and they're being asked to infer, the expectation doesn't change.
But it looks the way that it's supposed to look at that grade level, which is awesome. Yeah. Did you do that based on Common Core, Dr. Dickey, or have you done it from state to state? State to state. And so some states are Common Core, okay, which in some states you don't even mention that word. I mean, I'm in Texas right now. I don't like it. Okay. So in some states you don't mention it. But guess what? Main idea is taught in the state of Texas. So main idea is main idea. So I've done it for Texas. I've done it for Common Core states, and I've done it for non-Common Core states who are Common Core like but don't want to admit it.
Right. Yes, South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. So to your question, Doc, and I'll round out my response to your question. I have created what are called interpretation and resource guides, where I've interpreted every standard for ELA, mathematics, and science, defined terms, written graphic organizers to match the nuance of each grade. As you said, that the standards change by grade to grade. And so I've written graphic organizers to help teachers have the tools that they need to gradually release students to independence. I've created posters of like really important words across grade levels and disciplines, identified the grades that they should be taught. And these resources come print and digital. And everybody who's listening today can learn more about those resources by visiting our website at educationalepiphany.com.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dickey. We just wanted to make sure we got that out there so that people do know that there are resources that don't have to come in the form of a program.
Right.
Yeah.
And that what you talked about, just the science of reading, I think that is so important. And the fact that you've already done a lot of that work, which, like you said, teachers are burned out. That would save them time so they can really work on the work. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. My pleasure.
And one of the things that you hear a lot of people talking about, especially during the pandemic, is learning loss. And some people, say it's a dirty word. Some people are saying it's a real thing. Just tell us your thoughts on that and what advice you have to offer that's helpful to parents and educators.
Yeah. So look, let us be clear here that children from economically disadvantaged households experienced a gap in service. So the least among us got the least, potentially. Not in every case, but in many cases. And so, but there's hope. Let me tell you why there's hope. When you think about whether you be a Common Core state or a non-Common Core state, there's some commonality in the standards between K2, within 3.5, within 6.8, within 9.12. So if children miss determining the main topic, which crosses straight lines in 1st grade, guess what? Determine the main topic of a text reappears in the standards in grade 2. So they had a gap in service in grade 1, but don't worry about it because the same standard is coming back.
Right.
What we have to be concerned about, well, let me say this. Let me go to middle school. So kids have to determine the central idea of a text in 6th grade. But what if they had a gap in service during the pandemic? Guess what happens in 7th grade? Central idea comes back again in 7th grade. Okay. But I think what we have to be concerned about is the gap between grades 2 and 3, 5 and 6, 8 and 9, because that's when the standards change the most. So the ELA standard, the math standards, the science study standards, there's sort of like a cognitive ascension between 2 and 3, 5 and 6, 8 and 9. And so if kids were sort of like, I don't want to say the word recipients, but if they were impacted, by the pandemic and the gap in service, when they come back in 6th grade, you want to pull some of the things that we know they missed in 5th grade because they don't port over into 6th grade. That's how you solve it.
Yeah, and one of the things that we did at my school, Dr. Dickey, just so that we could try to combat that gap that we knew we would come back to between 2nd and 3rd grade, is I looped up my 2nd grade teachers with their kids to 3rd grade this year. So I had 2 teachers in 3rd who came down to 2nd so that those 2nd grade teachers could go up.
That's right.
With their group, so that we can hopefully see a continuation of the learning rather than that period of stalemate where they're trying to figure out what they need.
Only a practitioner would know to make such a move.
And she is an awesome practitioner.
Thank you.
And hopefully this won't take you back too far, Dr. Dickey, but everyone looks for strategies and resources and tools to engage and motivate their African-American male population. And I saw that your dissertation, Resilience in African-American Males, was something that you researched. What strategies have you found to be helpful for educators for that area, for that population of students?
Yeah. Sure. Look, I interviewed over the course of a school year, middle school African-American boys.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had my semi-structured interviews, which are like pre-prepared questions. But they taught me something about education that I didn't know. And I've been in education for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. And
they just talked to me in plain English. And here's what they said to me. We like the teacher to teach us something and then back off of us. Right? They don't want somebody to like stand over the top of them because they say they can't function like that.
Right.
So here's what they said, and I connected the dots between and among their responses to my questions. They said they really like gradual release, is what they were telling me. They like for somebody to show them, right, check for their understanding, give them a chance to practice sort of with the expert, and give them an opportunity to practice with a peer. And then allow them to work on their own.
Yes.
Because they don't want to feel the constant pressure, because they say they feel that constant pressure in and out of school. Right. They also said that when teachers show them respect, then it becomes their responsibility to show respect back to the teacher. And so children know who likes them and who doesn't.
They do.
They know.
Yeah. And they said it's their responsibility to perform academically because they don't want to displease the teacher whom they have a great deal of mutual respect for. And then they also said that they don't appreciate children who disrupt learning when they're trying to learn. Because there's this stereotype about African-American boys in public ed, and it's wrong. that they may be disinterested, unmotivated. It's not true. You've got to connect to their heart. And when you connect to their heart, then you can connect to their minds.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for elaborating on that. And you have consulted with educators in districts nationally in urban and suburban areas, as well as rural areas. And Tammy and I are in rural South Carolina, which you talked about misconceptions. A lot of times people don't understand that rural areas suffer sometimes even more so than urban areas. What effective strategies have you seen work in rural districts, or recommendations that you can make that will help us move the academic needle for students?
Yeah, I would tell you, this may sound strange and you may think, well, what's the difference between suburban and urban when I make this remark? But I find that when I do demonstration lessons for teachers and administrators in rural areas, people, we expedite improvements in how kids are being served academically. It's the demonstration lesson that has the most impact I have found in rural areas, because it's one thing to tell people what you want them to do in the classroom, but it's another thing to show them. Because here's what I found. There are 4 kinds of pushback. Y'all I'm answering your question, but I'm just going to go, around the mulberry bush.
Yeah,
So when teachers don't do what administration wants them to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could be misreading the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because some pushback is 4 types. This is type number 1. I won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And those people, they're so politically connected. And I'm not just saying teachers won't. I'm saying administrators may fold their arms and say, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So those folks are so politically connected that they don't follow the leader because they know they're connected and they don't always have to do what the leader is asking them to do. And sometimes they say, well, I heard you're not going to be here anyway. I'm going to wait you out. I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now, the second kind of pushback is, I will as long as you're looking. Like, people will do what you expect them to do instruction as long as they know you're coming around and take a look.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then the third kind of pushback is, I will if you show me. And that's the demonstration lesson. And that's 90% of the people in your buildings.
Mm-hmm.
They will do what you want. Teachers will do what you want them to do if you just show them.
Right.
Okay? And then the final group is, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Their pushback looks like they won't, but actually they don't have the capacity to do it.
Right.
And maybe they're in the wrong seat on the bus, and maybe they're teaching kinder and they need to be teaching fifth because they don't have the capacity to do the fundamental work around phonics and phonemic awareness, word work, and fluency and comprehension. And so if you develop that person from sun up to sundown, they won't be able to meet your expectation because they don't have the capacity to do it. And so you cannot treat all 4 of those categories the same way. The person that will do it if you show them, you got to show them, you got to give them support and hold their hand and then come back and check on them and co-teach with them. But the person who won't do it, they're dangerous to children and they should be separated from public education.
Agreed. Yes, definitely. And this is the last question, and some people in the audience, if you all have questions, make sure you're putting those questions in the comments so we can see them. But Dr. Dickey, you have a wealth of experience from an English teacher, assistant principal, regional superintendent, and now the CEO of Educational Epiphany that is doing wonderful from us following you and just seeing, how much you're helping educators around the country. Tell us about the transition and when you knew that it was time to completely transition into this role, because there's a lot of people like ourselves who we're educators as well as we are consultants with our own company, Create and Educate, and we're helping people as well in leadership and literacy. When did you know it was time to make that full transition?
Yeah, so Educational Epiphany is 13 years old,
mm-hmm.
and which means if you look back at my resume, 13 years ago, I was a middle school principal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was running and building Educational Epiphany while I had a full-time principalship. And let me tell you how I got into this business. My superintendent said, hey, Doc, well, I wasn't Doc at the time. Hey, Dicky, what did you do? I mean, you got the most significant gains in the entire state. You outgained more than 3,200 schools in the state of Maryland. What did you do? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I did this, I did this, I did that. He said, well, I got a friend in Vegas. I want you to go show her. Go show her what you did. And I mm-hmm. said, okay. So I met with her at like Dunkin' Donuts in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, what does it cost for you to come to my school and help me? And I was like, well, I don't know. I've never done this before. I went online and I Googled, like, what do consultants charge their clients? Right. and I couldn't get an answer. It just said the best answer I could find is base it on the impact.
Mm-hmm.
So I charged my fee and I kept that fee for like a whole decade. And guess what I did with her in 1 year? She demonstrated the most significant gains in Nevada that year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I knew I had something. But, we don't grow up and think you're gonna leave a good government job for something that's not sure. I didn't get ahead of myself. I kept working as a principal, went to Philadelphia as assistant superintendent, and then the next year became the chief academic officer of Philadelphia. That's the 8th largest school district that you read in the bio.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went on to Atlanta to be the chief of schools and chief academic officer. And all the while I was running the business quietly because you can't have conflicts. You can't have like ethical conflicts. And so I just had to do it quietly. And when I lived in Philly, I didn't do business in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And when I lived in Georgia, I didn't do business in the state of Georgia, because you cannot benefit from the folks in your own state. That's unethical, right? So when I knew I needed to transition, is I thought I knew I wanted to do next, what I wanted to do next. I thought I wanted to be a superintendent. But it turns out I could help millions of children independently. And so I made the decision. Now, I know that's not what the newspapers say, but you can't, that's fake news, y'all. Okay? And so here's what happened. I made a decision and I trusted God. And it blew up. And so I knew when I went to do something that I thought I should do next, only to find out that should not have been my next move. Wow. And you just know when you know. And let me tell folks who are interested in stepping out there, you need a pipeline. You need a pipeline. And so you can't step out there and you don't have a client. You don't already have one. And you want to be a nationwide consultant, you better have a pipeline. And so at the time I stepped out there, y'all, I already had a pipeline. And so then I was able to build upon that pipeline. And I have customers, clients, partners that I've been working with for 10 years now. They're still on board with me. And while other folks are going backward, other schools with whom I've had the opportunity to work, they're going forward.
Well, we just want to commend you. I've seen you present at that conference before, and I see that you are going to be presenting at some other conferences in South Carolina that I definitely plan to attend. Your work is phenomenal. It's what educators need, and I just want to we want to commend you for what you do, because literacy is the thing that really, when we talked about all of those areas that it impacts, that is the thing that we really need and can't afford to not get right, especially for children in our communities as well. So thank you, and we commend you for your work, and thank you for being here. You've shared a wealth of information with everyone. I hope everyone was taking notes.
I was. So admire the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. You look, y'all, if y'all ever need me again for anything big and small, you don't hesitate to call me. And Dr. Abrams from my team, you know her. She's hardworking. She'll get it scheduled.
She will. We are so thankful for her as well.
Yes.
So thank you so much. We're going to end. We normally end with story time, but we are going to end tonight with something that we've been working on with one of our independent authors, LaToya Lewis, who has written I Am Brown. We have a Braille's tour where she is actually teaching in Dubai. So Braille's taking us on a tour of Dubai while she reads I Am Brown at the end of that. So we're just going to show the trailer. And then if you would like that to be emailed to you for you to use for your parent families, for student and parent engagement, for summer reading, or for literacy, it is something a tool that you can use. So thank you all for joining us in our Facebook audience. Thank you, Dr. Dickey. We so appreciate you. And we did hear you. We're not finna quit our jobs now.
We know better.
Yeah, so Pele had a pipeline before he left. You can have a pipeline.
Okay. Keep these good government jobs.
All right.
We're going to learn and build this pipeline first.
All right. Okay, everybody. Y'all take care.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
You.
My pleasure.
All right. Let me share my screen. And if you would like a copy of Braille's tour, if you would just visit our website and put your email address in, we will email you Braille's tour as well as the catalog. So thank you all so much for joining us. And I'm going to put this up right now. Oh, it didn't go up, did it?
No, it's not on. Are you sharing?
There we go.
There you are.
Okay, let me try it one more time from here. Here we go.
Are you ready, Bella, to go to Brayley's tour on the airport?
Yeah!
You got the ticket?
Yeah!
I've never been to Dubai. I just can't wait. Can you?
Yeah!
Let's go! Oh yeah, look at the time on the card. We have to be there now. Come on, Bella. We have to run there. Let's go! Bella, we made it to the airport so we can fly to Dubai and see Brayley's tour. I can't wait. Can you? Yeah. Let's go. Let's go and get on that plane. Bye.
So if you would like a copy of Brayley's tour, exposure for children is very important. Two of our guests that we had on previously talked about living abroad and just exposing children to possibilities and letting them see those landscapes is something that is eye-opening for them. So if you would just visit our website, we'll put that in the comments, and we'll email you the copy of Brayley's tour that you can use for parental engagement as well as student engagement. And parents, you can definitely use it to make it a family affair for you and your children, and make sure that summer reading is something that is still going on in your home. So thank you all so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Hey, Miss Caldwell.
Yes, hello.
And Josh Tovar asked for Dr. Dickey's Twitter, Sheka, and it's at Donyall, Donyall, and we could put it in the comments if I'll put it in there.
Yes, Josh, we'll put it in there. Thank you so much for asking and for being on. And Principal Kafele, we appreciate you, Principal Hurt, everyone, all the educators that were on.
Yes,
we
thank
so
you,
appreciate you. This was so informative. And we will see you all on Saturday. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Bye, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yes.